Welcome back to Caker 101, where today we're going to learn smooth buttercream. Now when I say smooth, I don't mean picture perfect, but it will be pretty darn close. Now it does take practice, so please be kind to yourself when you're doing this. Remember, I've done this hundreds of times over, and this may be your very first time. But the tools that you're going to need for this are, well, some buttercream and a rubber spatula, a couple of offsets, or one of your choice, whether that's a large or a small, a ready-to-go cake, so you've already torted it, you've filled it, you've crumb-coated it, it has chilled, and it's ready to be finished. Now, here's where it's personal preference and choice, but you will need some sort of flat bench scraper or bowl scraper. You could use your offset, but it's a little harder, but you will need a tool similar to one of these. So this is a plastic bowl scraper. Very affordable. You can get them for, I think, $1 or so on Amazon. This would be a metal bowl scraper, so stainless steel. It's not flexible like the plastic one would be. So it's a little bit better for getting that smooth side. Or a bench scraper, something similar to this with a wooden or a plastic handle, as long as it's got a nice flat edge. You can actually find similar ones to this, but with a plastic handle at dollar stores in the kitchen section, but they're great for doing the sides of cakes. So pick your weapon of choice. Preferably I enjoy using this one, but because my cake is tall, it's not quite long enough, so I'm gonna have to use this one today because it reaches from the bottom of my cake to the top of my cake. So to start, you want to make sure your buttercream is nice and workable. So if it's been sitting for a while, I'm using an American buttercream. If it's been sitting for a while, you want to just give it a little stir. It's called refreshing your buttercream, making sure it's ready to go. And then I'm going to grab my large offset. And I start with the sides. If you prefer to start with the top, you go ahead and do that. But my goal here is just to get a nice even layer of buttercream all the way around my cake, by only putting so much at a time on my offset and making sure that my offset is not angled along the side, so it's parallel to the sides of my cake as I try to smooth that buttercream out. So if I have it on an angle, I might end up with more buttercream at the top or more at the bottom. You just want to be sure you're holding it completely parallel and just letting the knife or the palette knife do the work. Don't force it. I'm not pressing against the cake, I'm just smoothing. I'm just gently moving that buttercream around on the sides of the cake. So making sure I'm getting that even layer all the way around. Now, if it's not quite perfect, which most times it's not on your first pass, when you go to smooth the sides, you'll see where you'll need more buttercream. And I'll show you that as we go through here. So once I have my preliminary coat of buttercream, we'll call it, on my sides, I'm gonna put a dollop of buttercream. By dollop, I mean a good amount there on the top. And I'm gonna take my offset and I'm going to work it to the edges. Now, holding my plate in place, I'm just going to turn my table kind of back and forth and in circles as needed. And then once I have it spread to how I think it should look or how thick it should be, I'm gonna hold my spatula in one place and I'm just going to going to spin my table so I get a nice flat buttercream. Now I have this ledge and lip going around where I pushed out, so that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure I push that out over the sides. So I'm just gonna go back to my sides again, take my offset and run it along that top edge. That's going to ensure that my top and my sides seal together and the end. Okay, doesn't look so smooth now. Hey, it kind of looks rustic. And this is a finish. This is something we could absolutely do with the cake. But we want it to look a little smoother than that so that we can do our final decorating depending on our design. Take our bench scraper. Again, this one I'm using because it's tall enough to reach from the bottom to the top of my cake, so that's kind of important. Make sure you have one that's tall enough. So having a variety of different tools can help with that. I have an even longer one that kind of stands about that tall for when I do extremely tall cakes. But I'm going to take that bench scraper and I'm going to hold it at about between a 30 and 45 degree angle to the side of my cake. I'll spin it so you can see. So I'm holding it like that so that when I pull this, it's going to allow the buttercream to smooth out behind it and drag it behind the bench scraper. Now I want to make sure I'm not angled in any way. So the best thing to do is I usually use my board as a guide. I hold it straight up and down to the cake. Pull it, if you can get it in one smooth motion, that's the best. So I always kind of take my hand and wrap it around, because as I pull, I'm gonna get a full range of motion without stopping. So my turntable, it just lightly press the bench scraper along. And as you can tell, still not perfect. But I did get a little bit of buttercream off of the cake. So I scrape that back into my bowl and I try again. Holding it against my cake at an angle. I'm gonna go around. And as you can see, that second pass, it's gotten a lot smoother. Again, pulled off a little bit of buttercream. I'm not pressing the bench scraper into the cake because I'm not looking to pull off all the buttercream. I'm just looking to smooth out what's there. So one last pass. And you know what? I'm pretty happy with that. I got a little bit of a finish edge there where I stopped my scraper. So if I wanted, I could just do one quick pass to try and smooth that out a little bit better. You can see I did. And scrape that excess back into my bowl. Now let's tackle this top edge. It doesn't look that great. We want it to be a little bit sharper than that and a little bit more smooth. Cake decorating now has a finish. That finish is like this with this rough top edge. But to combat that, I'm gonna switch to this one just because it's a little bit lighter and easier to handle. But I could absolutely do it with this one. And I'm going to just hold it again at that same angle as I did on the sides, over the edge of my cake. And I'm not pressing it down in, I'm just laying it on top of that lip of buttercream, and I'm going to drag it inward. I'm not going to push. The weight of this is enough to drag that inward. So I'm just gonna lay it and gently drag. And that's going to smooth off the sides and sharpen that edge. So again, I'm gonna turn it now to the next part. I'm gonna lay it down gently and just pull. So again, I have a little bit of buttercream that's pulling off, but I'm getting this nice edge compared to over here. So just keep spinning the cake around and around until you are happy with that top edge. Now I will tell you, the more you fuss with this, the more you're gonna mess it up. Just be gentle, take your time. And after a few practices, I'm gonna clean up my board here a little bit. After a few practices, I'm absolutely certain, can achieve buttercream that's as smooth as this in such a short amount of time. Thank you for tuning in to Caker 101 today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.